Imaginative Hobbyist presents Batman Meets Godzilla, based on a treatment by William Dozier, adapted by Max ZS. On a cruise ship in the Far East, Police Commissioner Gordon and his daughter Barbara enjoy a much-needed break from Gotham City. The vacation isn't all about rest and relaxation, as Gordon has made arrangements with several police facilities to see how wrongdoers are dealt with in other lands by different hands. Barbara, meanwhile, is excited to see an old friend from college, Reiko Hamamoto, who is now the assistant librarian in Western culture at the University of Tokyo. 4 days since the cruise ship set sail, both the police commissioner and his daughter are surprised by how uneventful their trip has been so far. They are so used to there being so much excitement back home. A typical day feels very atypical. Without warning, an enormous tidal wave rocks the boat back and forth as if it were a toy being played with by a child. Many people fall overboard and meet a terrible fate, but the Gordons are among the few that managed to survive the unexpected natural disaster. But was it truly natural or supernatural? Years of living in Gotham City has made James and Barbara suspicious of everything, and when the boat finally floats to the city of Tokyo, they learn that the event was not predicted to happen. At a hotel James and Barbara stay in, the police commissioner is contacted by an old friend of his, Ito Nagano, Outerpole's far eastern chief, who tells him that in the last 48 hours, a series of natural disasters, similar to the tidal wave that wrecked their boat, have been occurring without warning. Mombetsu, a city that is normally fairly cold this time of year, suffered a heat wave so devastating several people died due to heat stroke. Meanwhile, an earthquake shook Kushiro and destroyed many buildings in the process. Barbara cannot stand and let this conversation take place without her. She joins and presses Nagano on if he has any suspicions. He tells both Gordons of Klaus Finster, a scientist who specializes in meteorology, who went mad and vanished off the face of the earth some time ago. Recently, the Japanese government received a threatening note from Dr. Finster, who promised to destroy the Japanese mainland in 7 days if he is not paid $50 million in gold. Without hesitation, Gordon says he will make a call to an old friend from Gotham City, the Batman, who along with his young ward Robin, the Boy Wonder, will stop this madman. At the GCPD, an anxious Chief O'Hara is relieved to hear Commissioner Gordon's voice after watching the news on the television. Gordon asks O'Hara to reach out to Batman immediately. He makes the call. After a long night fighting crime as Batman, an exhausted Bruce Wayne finally finds the time for some much-needed rest. As he is about to shut his eyes, the telephone rings. He answers not as Bruce Wayne, but as the Caped Crusader instead. Chief O'Hara explains the importance of his phone call. He tells him that Commissioner Gordon needs the dynamic duo in Japan to see if they can handle the crisis at hand. Batman agrees on the condition that Gotham City will be safe while he and Robin are away. O'Hara assures him that, at the moment, the streets are as clean as a whistle, and he will do his best to keep it that way. If he cannot, he will call again. Reassured, Bruce Wayne informs his young ward Richard of the situation, and the two drive to the airport as their alter egos in the Batmobile. At the airport, their trusted butler, Alfred Pennyworth, finishes warming up the brand new Batplane for the dynamic duo to travel to Japan in. Batman and Robin arrive, driving the Batmobile aboard, and take off into the sky. Back in Japan, while Barbara Gordon is out of town, she buys a new motorcycle. She rents space in a garage close to the hotel she and her father are staying at, where she modifies the design of the motorcycle so it resembles her other one back home, the one that she rides in Gotham City, not as Barbara Gordon, but as Batgirl. She has kept her attire well hidden in a special traveling bag, knowing that since the forces of evil never take a vacation, neither should the forces of good. In a bunker deep beneath the heights of Mount Fuji, Dr. Finster plans his next move. He makes one more call to the government, saying he will cause another disaster if they do not agree to his demands. He will continue to unleash the wrath of Mother Nature till there is no more Japan left on the world map. Unable to reach someone of authority, he stormed to his elaborate control board, where, with the push of a button, he controls the king of the monsters, Godzilla. The prehistoric reptilian giant, who was awakened and empowered by nuclear radiation, was found hibernating deep within the earth by Dr. Finster, who implanted an electronic device in the monster's brain to control his every action. Dr. Finster awakens the fearsome force of nature from his rest in the Mariana Trench, and sends the radioactive behemoth to execute his sinister desires. Flying at thrice the speed of sound in their Mach 3 jet, Batman and Robin arrive in Japan. Robin radios to an airport in Tokyo to anticipate their arrival. When they land, it is like when the Fab Four performed at the Shea Stadium in 1965. A large crowd of people express much enthusiasm for the dynamic duo's presence in their city, to the point where both the Caped Crusader and the Boy Wonder are mobbed by adoring fans, and a few other overexcited admirers take the Batmobile for a joyride. Watching from his lair underneath Mount Fuji, Dr. Finster gives orders to an associate who is at the scene via shortwave radio. He is a European man who introduces himself to Batman and Robin as Count Dreidel, a former resident of Gotham City, and currently the representative of the Wayne Foundation in Tokyo. Bruce Wayne recognizes the man, but notices something is very off about him. The Count moves in closer on Gotham City's dark night. Batman notices that as he takes his monocle off, his eye begins to glow a bright red. Batman punches the Count. On the ground, a bullet shoots from his eye socket into the air. This is not a man, but a machine designed to imitate a human being. The first question on the Caped Crusader's mind, among other things, is where the real Count is. At the hotel of Jim Gordon and his daughter Barbara, the police commissioner and the dynamic duo are given an answer by Nagano, who reveals to Batman that the real Count Dreidel was found floating underneath the Eitai Bridge on the Sumida River. Investigators found only one particular item in his possession, a note for the Caped Crusader. It reads, "To Batman, monsters don't know which way to go unless they are shown the way." The haiku poem puzzles Batman, Robin, and Commissioner Gordon, but Nagano speculates that he may be referring to the dreaded Godzilla. But this would not be possible, as he was long presumed dead after an epic battle with King Kong several years ago. Nagano shows them footage of the last time the world saw the atomic horror in his battle with Skull Island's Titan of Terror. As they review the footage, anxiety takes a strong hold on Jim Gordon. The stories of Godzilla that he had heard did not do justice to the horrible might of the beast. At that very moment, Barbara Gordon returns. She has brought her friend Reiko along with. No one knows or grows suspicious of Reiko, who is actually a human-like machine designed to mimic the appearance of the real Miss Hamamoto. And through the camera device in her head, the sinister Dr. Finster watches with glee. The news program on the television set reports that a typhoon has struck Kagoshima, exactly as Dr. Finster said it would happen. Dr. Finster, watching from the eyes of his mechanical woman, is too overjoyed to be patient any longer, and gives the Dark Knight a call. The Caped Crusader answers, and the mad scientist tells him that if Batman is to speak for the country, then he is willing to arrange a deal. He tells to wait for a taxi at the street corner, and he will be taken to meet him in person. Batman hangs up the phone. Everyone except Robin exits the room, leaving the two to discuss strategy. In the hotel lobby, Commissioner Gordon, his daughter, and Dr. Finster's robotic impersonation of Barbara's friend Reiko spot millionaire Bruce Wayne and his ward Richard Grayson entering the building. They announce that they are in Tokyo for reasons specific to the Wayne Foundation. Mr. Wayne has many questions about Mr. Dreidel's disappearance and the assassination attempt on the Batman. He asks if, because the dynamic duo are staying at the same hotel, if he could have a word with the world's greatest detective, but is advised by the police commissioner to let him and Robin be for the time being. A wicked plan forms in the twisted mind of Dr. Finster. Using his mechanical duplicate of Reiko, he speaks in her voice and suggests going to a kabuki show for a little culture. No objections are made, and the devilish smile on Dr. Finster grows in excitement. At the kabuki theater, Wayne, Grayson, the Gordons, and Reiko are honored guests. The actors take their performance dangerously close to the front row. In one sweep, an actor tosses their sword like a disc. They miss Wayne, Grayson, and the Gordons, but directly hit Reiko, detaching her head from her body. When sparks of electricity erupt from the body of Reiko, the discovery that she is a mechanized imposter is made. Wayne and Grayson spot the actors on stage making a getaway and run after them. In their pursuit, they find the actual actors who were set to perform this evening. Outside of the theater, Wayne and Grayson are led through some alleys by the two imposters. They lose them in the chase. Both Bruce and Richard find themselves in the territory of a thundering herd of motorcyclists. There is nowhere to run for Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson to be safe. The herd of cyclists prove to be as threatening as they look, with a few surprises up their sleeves, as the headlamps from their bikes shoot out sharp spikes at the American visitors. Using a fire escape, Bruce Wayne and his young ward manage to perform a trapeze act that evades the gang of bikers. The leader decides if they can jump that high up and move as quick, they are not worth the effort, and they cycle away into the night. The next day, Batman and Robin are greeted by a government emissary, who informs the dynamic duo that they will not agree to Dr. Finster's financial requests. Batman and Robin go to finally meet Dr. Finster. Close by, Barbara Gordon returns from seeing her friend, the real Reiko, at her apartment where she was tied up by her imposter. She observes Batman and Robin's exiting, and decides it is time for Batgirl to make her Tokyo debut. She changes in the other room, and takes the service elevator to the basement of the hotel. The Batmobile roars out into the streets of Tokyo, unbeknownst to the dynamic duo. Batgirl follows them from a distance in her new Batcycle. On a not-too-crowded street corner, Batman and Robin park the Batmobile by a taxi, whose driver, the right-hand man of Dr. Finster, holds a sign with their names on it. The Caped Crusader and the Boy Wonder enter the car, and the drive to meet the Mad Doctor finally begins. Or so they think. The driver puts on a mask, and with the press of a button, locks the entire vehicle tight. Clamps bind Batman and Robin to their seats, without the possibility of reaching for their utility belts, and sprays gas that threatens the lives of the heroes of Gotham City. The driver parks outside by a public bath for men, and exits the vehicle to enter inside. Batgirl catches up to the taxi, and finds the dynamic duo in danger. Acting quickly, she pulls out a miniature blowtorch from her utility belt, and burns open a side door. Batman and Robin are surprised to see Batgirl in Tokyo, but are also thankful for saving their lives. She directs them to the location of the driver. They race inside the bath, but in order to continue their pursuit, they are requested by the bath attendant to undress, or else they cannot pass. The Caped Crusader and the Boy Wonder reluctantly undress, but request to leave their masks on. They continue their search and find the driver in one corner of the bathhouse, face down and drowned. Back outside, Batman, Robin, and Batgirl are given the latest paper by a walking newsboy. Batman, who is an expert in Japanese, reads the headline that Dr. Finster has notified the government that he intends to create a firestorm in Takeda. All three of Gotham City's costumed heroes storm off to the city. In Takeda, many citizens evacuate. Batman, Robin, and Batgirl sit on the top floor of a 5-story pagoda in the center of the city, observing the sea. The dynamic trio realizes that all of the disaster caused by the Mad Doctor have occurred in coastal cities, and that Dr. Finster must be using some sort of amphibious vehicle to accomplish his acts of terror. The ground begins to shake. The dynamic trio wonder if this was the start of Dr. Finster's attack on the city. A mighty roar that follows confirms their worst fears. Godzilla has come to Takeda. He blows his incredible breath and rains fire down across the city. Batman, Robin, and Batgirl climb aboard the Batcopter and take off. Godzilla sees them and attempts to take them down. Batman, from his analysis of the mighty beast's behavior from the footage of his clash with King Kong, anticipates the atomic monster's every move, and the dynamic trio manages to escape his fury. At the Tokyo Police Headquarters, Batman talks with Police Chief Sadakichi, who offers the help of all of his men and women on the force. Batman gives the order to wait for Dr. Finster's next move. There is not much time left before he initiates his plan to destroy all of Japan. Later, Batman and Robin meet with the Minister of Defense, who has instructions from the state. Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute. Their tea arrives. After one sip, the Minister of Defense begins to feel strange and collapses to the floor. Acting quickly, Batman saves his life with an antidote he has in his utility belt and chases after the server. Batman catches up with the man who gave them the poison tea in a small room. The assassin proves to be quite the karate master, as the two engage in a fight that ends up destroying the interior of a delicate room close by. Batman manages to overcome the assassin, but before he can say a word, he is struck down by a ninja mace thrown from outside of the window. Batman rushes to see who is responsible, and finds that the assassin of the assassin has fled from sight. With Osaka being said to be attacked next, Batman, Robin, the Gordons, and Ito take a bullet train to the city. Dr. Finster watches their every move from a small, well-hidden television device provided by one of his men, who has replaced the conductor on the train. The train makes a scheduled stop at Nagoya. At the station, Barbara sees 5 enormous sumo men enter the train from the back. She slips away from her father and reboards as Batgirl. She alerts Batman and Robin as the large men are about to begin their attack on the dynamic duo, and a fight ensues in the railroad car that completely destroys it from the ground up. In the end, the 3 costumed heroes are victorious, but the worst is yet to come. Erupting from the waters of Issei Bay, Godzilla attacks the train and sends Batman and Robin flying into the water. Batgirl remains on what is left of the railroad car and comes face to face with the beast. Dr. Finster urges Godzilla to crush the young woman, but something about her stops Godzilla from completing the sinister deed. There is something about the girl's determination to protect that brings to mind memories of Mothra, a creature that had bested him long ago and he learned to respect after their battle. He picks Batgirl up and gently sets her by the side of the road and takes off to Osaka. Batman and Robin return to land and see this deed, and Batman begins to consider that Godzilla is not a being of pure evil, but rather is being forced into doing the bidding of a sinister force, Dr. Finster. As he enters the city of Osaka, Godzilla is met with the full force of the army, hitting him with rockets and mortars, but to no effect. With a single blow of his atomic breath, they are all turned to ash. The city of Osaka has been destroyed. Everyone now knows of Godzilla's return. In Tokyo, Batman and Robin meet with Commissioner Gordon and Ito. In the last 12 hours, 8 million people have been evacuated from the city, even the army, leaving Tokyo empty. And it's been decided that Godzilla cannot be stopped. Dr. Finster is of 2 minds as he sees an empty Tokyo. On one hand, he is being taken as seriously as he wants to be. But on the other hand, there will be no one to make suffer. He leaves his hideout underneath Mount Fuji and drives into the streets of Tokyo with his mind-controlling device that he's been using on Godzilla. He knows the beast has been resting at the bottom of Tokyo Bay, and when he decides to activate the device, his new toy will be ready to play. In the meantime, he and his men enjoy looting and destroying the various stores in Tokyo without facing any consequences. In a laboratory outside the city, a corps of scientists work with Batman, Robin, and Batgirl on how to eliminate the threat of Godzilla. Force alone cannot stop him. They must try and outsmart the creature instead. The dynamic trio surprises Dr. Finster and his men in the middle of their shopping spree in Tokyo. Every one of his men are defeated, and the Mad Doctor makes a run for it. The dynamic trio's pursuit of Dr. Finster ends on top of a 37-story high Kazan building. On the rooftop, a cornered Dr. Finster slips and falls to the ground. The Doctor's reign of terror is over, but a new one is about to begin, as his mind control device breaks into pieces, and the monster awakens, and he is not happy. Godzilla roars into Tokyo, destroying everything he lays his eyes upon in uncontrollable rage. The army returns to the city and tries to stop him, but they are unsuccessful. Batman, Robin, and Batgirl make their escape in the Batmobile, heading back to the laboratory outside of town. Godzilla sees them and scoops up the vehicle in his hand. Both Batman and Robin are able to escape, but Batgirl becomes the monster's prisoner. Looking at her again, the rage the beast has felt slowly begins to settle down, but the vengeance of the army enrages him even more than before, and he crushes everything that stands in his way. Leaving less than dust behind, Godzilla with Batgirl in his paw leaves Tokyo and ventures out to Kamakura. Thanks to their new scientist friends, a perfect replica of the Batmobile was made. Batman and Robin use it to return to the laboratory. Batman grabs the telephone and calls the Japanese Aerospace Administration offices and tells them to proceed with Phase 2 of their plan. Batman and Robin drive off in their new Batmobile to Kamakura, as Godzilla makes it there with his hostage. Godzilla begins his destruction of the city. The Batman pulls up by the frenzied beast, and Batman activates the Godzilla calling device he created with the scientists back at the laboratory. Godzilla stops his path of destruction. Puzzled by the sound, he gently sits Batgirl down by the Daibutsu Buddha and pursues the source of the call. As Batman drives through the street of the city in the Batmobile, playing the Godzilla call and luring this creature away from civilization, Robin goes out to rescue a weakened Batgirl, who still has enough strength to stand up and walk on 2 feet. Batman lures Godzilla to an abandoned part of the city, exits the Batmobile, and hides the device. As Godzilla catches up to the sound, Batman enters and makes his way up to the top of the building that has remained untouched by the beast's violent fury. Godzilla walks past the building. Batman leaps into the air and onto his tail, making his way up the Atomic Terror's scaly back. The world watches as a mortal man dressed as a bat reaches the base of Godzilla's skull, throws a rope around its ear, and sets off an explosion that stuns the monster and ends his attack on all that stands before him. Batman slides down on his bat rope and manages to avoid being crushed by the massive weight of the prehistoric mutation. The citizens of the city and the army inspect the fallen giant. They see he is not destroyed, but merely stunned and weakened. Batman gives the order to begin Phase 3. A short while later, in the heart of Kamakura, a very large crane places a weakened Godzilla into the world's largest rocket, and right as he begins to regain his strength, it blasts off into the stars. There is hope that this is the last time the world sees the Great Green Destroyer, and there is fear that if he returns, he will release a fury that will be nothing anyone could ever imagine, even in their nightmares. After a baseball game where they are guests of honor, Batman and Robin take off in the Batplane at sunset, waving goodbye to millions of cheering citizens of the great country of Japan. When they return to Gotham City in America, both are exhausted and go to their bedrooms to rest for a little while. As Bruce Wayne lays down on his bed, the bat signal brightens the night sky. Japan was saved, but Gotham City still needs its heroes. Bruce Wayne calls for Dick Grayson and tells him it's time to get to work.